So, next time you're looking up at the spring night sky, find the Big Dipper. Now, follow its handle, and you'll see this huge kite shaped pattern of stars. That's Boötes, the herdsman. And, this isn't just another old constellation. It's a place where the universe basically puts its wildest contradictions on full display. So, yeah, let's dive right in.
And this is the central puzzle we're going to tackle. I mean, think about it. How can one single patch of sky hold one of the brightest stars you can see from the northern hemisphere, and at the same time, the universe's greatest, emptiest void? It just doesn't seem to make sense, right? How is that even possible?
All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to talk about this giant full of secrets and the star that really shouldn't be there. Then we'll look at a ghost in the sky and the emptiest place we know. We'll even dive into a pretty dark myth of wine and tragedy. And finally, we'll see how it all connects as our window to the cosmos. So, a giant full of secrets, an ancient parachute in the spring sky. First things first, let's just get our bearings. Boötes isn't some new discovery. It's one of the original 48 constellations mapped by the ancient Greeks. And it is huge, the 13th largest in the entire sky. It's been a landmark up there for literally thousands of years. But the most fascinating stuff about it, well, that's the stuff we've only just started to figure out.
The star that shouldn't be. Yeah, we're talking about the story of Arcturus. You see, the first big secret starts with its brightest star. This is Arcturus. It's the alpha star of Boötes. And get this, it's the brightest star in the entire northern half of the sky. But here's the kicker. It's not from around here. It's just a tourist passing through our neighborhood. And the scale we're talking about here is just staggering. Arcturus is what we call an orange giant. It's 25 times bigger than our sun. I mean, just try to picture that. If you swapped out our sun for Arcturus, it would swallow Mercury completely. It's not just big, it's also bright, blazing with 170 times the energy of our star, an absolute behemoth. And it's just visiting. And this star, it actually has a really cool place in our own human history. So picture this. It's 1933, the Chicago World's Fair. The organizers want to do something really spectacular for the grand opening. Now, back then, they thought Arcturus was 40 light years away. So they came up with this brilliant plan. They decided to use light that had left the star during the last Chicago Fair way back in 1893 to turn on the main lights. And you know what? It actually worked. Now, okay, today we know the distance is a bit shorter, 36.7 light years. So the light was a few years late to the party. But still, what an incredible story, right? Connecting a star to a moment in our own time. So here's the really crucial point. Arcturus is an intruder. It's an outsider. You see, most stars around here, including our own sun, they're all cruising along calmly inside the flat disk of the Milky Way, kind of like cars on a freeway. But Arcturus? Nope. It's what's called a halo star, from the galaxy's big spherical outer shell. So it's not following the traffic. It's plunging through our part of the galaxy at this crazy steep angle, and it's moving at a blistering 122 kilometers per second relative to us. We just happen to be here for the cosmic blink of an eye that it's in our neighborhood. A ghost in a sky. The mystery of the quadrant heads. Okay, let's move on to our next paradox. This one involves something you might have even seen yourself every January, a pretty spectacular meteor shower. The spot in the sky where all the meteors seem to shoot from, we call that the radiant. It's right there, smack in the middle of beauties. But its name? Well, its name tells a whole other story. So every January, we get the quadrant head meteor shower. But if it's coming from Boots, why isn't it called the Boötes? I mean, that's how it usually works, right? Well, the answer's kind of a ghost story. It's about a constellation that simply isn't there anymore. And this timeline really shows you that our map of the sky isn't set in stone. So back in 1795, this astronomer, Jérôme Lalande, he creates a brand new constellation called Quadrans Muralis. He basically carves it out of a piece of Boötes and its neighbors. But then fast forward to 1922, the International Astronomical Union decides to standardize the sky map to the 88 constellations we know today, and Quadrans Muralis got the axe. It was just abolished. The territory went back to Boötes, but the meteor shower, it kept its old name. It's literally the ghost of a constellation that doesn't officially exist anymore. You know, Boötes is also home to some pretty extreme worlds. Take the exoplanet Tau Boötes b. It's one of the very first hot Jupiters we ever found, and these things are just bizarre. They're massive gas giants. Think Jupiter, but instead of being way out in the cold, they're orbiting their stars in these incredibly tight, scorching hot loops. They completely defy what we thought we knew about planets. Right. So in Boötes, a year can last just 3 days. And Tau Boötes b is the perfect, crazy example of this. Think about the paradox here. You've got a planet as big as Jupiter, which should be in a long, cold orbit way, way out from its star. But instead, it's trapped in this fiery dance, whipping around its sun in just over 3 days. Imagine that, a year that's only 3 days and 7.5 hours long. One side of the planet is probably just permanently baked by its star, a world of truly unimaginable extremes. The emptiest place we know, staring into the great void. Okay, so we've seen a rogue star, a ghost constellation, and a superheated planet. But now we turn to the most profound paradox of them all. Because when we look toward the center of Boötes, we are literally staring into an abyss. It's known as the Boötes void, or the Great Void. If the Milky Way had been in the center of the Boötes void, we wouldn't have known there were other galaxies until the 1960s. That's a quote from astronomer Greg Aldering, and just let that sink in for a second. Imagine that. For almost all of human history, we would have looked up at a completely empty night sky, and we would have thought our galaxy was it, the entire universe. That's how isolated we'd be.
And the scale here, it's just almost impossible to get your head around. We're talking about a diameter of roughly 300 million light years. Okay, let's put that in perspective. It takes light, the fastest thing there is, 300 million years just to get from one side of this void to the other. It's mind-blowing.
And this is where the sheer emptiness really hits you. You see, based on how galaxies are usually spread out in the universe, a space this big should have something like 10,000 galaxies in it. 10,000! But how many have we actually found? About 60. From 10,000 down to 60. It is, without a doubt, one of the emptiest places we have ever found.
So you have to be wondering, how can a void this big even exist? Well, the best way to think about it is to imagine the universe as a kind of cosmic foam. See, on the largest scales, gravity has pulled matter together over billions and billions of years, and it's formed these long, stringy filaments of galaxies. They're like the walls of soap bubbles in a sink. And the Beauty's void, it's one of those massive empty bubbles on the inside. A myth of wine and tragedy. The dark origin story of the herdsman. Okay, so we're going to pivot now from the largest structures in the known universe to one of our oldest stories. When we look up at Boötes, we see a herdsman or a plowman, right? A figure of life, of cultivation. But one of its origin myths is, well, it's a really dark, tragic story about the very first time human beings ever tasted wine. So, the story goes like this. First, you have the gift. The god Dionysus teaches a kind mortal, a guy named Icarius, the secret of how to make wine. So, of course, Icarius is thrilled, and he goes to share it with some local shepherds. But here's the misunderstanding. They had never, ever felt the effects of alcohol before. So when they start feeling drunk, they think Icarius has poisoned them, and they murder him. Then comes the discovery. His daughter, Erigone, finds his body, and she is so destroyed by grief that she hangs herself. And even her dog, Macara, dies from the anguish. Finally, we get the ascent. The gods, seeing all this tragedy, decide to place them all in the sky as constellations, so they'd be remembered forever. And this is how they were placed. The murdered father, Icarius, he became Boötes, the herdsman. His heartbroken daughter, Erigone, became the constellation Virgo, the maiden. And their loyal dog, Myra, well, she became either Sirius or Procyon, the dog stars, forever following her master across the night sky. And here's the really poignant part. If you look up at the night sky, you'll see that Virgo is always right next to Boötes. The father and daughter are placed side by side for all eternity, a constant, silent reminder of their tragic bond, forever close, but never, ever able to touch. Your window to the cosmos, a bridge across time. All right, let's pull all these different threads together. Because Boötes really isn't just one thing, is it? It's this incredible bridge that connects ancient human tragedy with cutting-edge astrophysics. It's a place that holds both a speeding star from our galaxy's distant past and an enormous void that tells us about the future structure of the entire universe. So here are the big takeaways from Boötes. Remember that the brightest northern star is really just a high-speed visitor. A major meteor shower is named for a constellation that literally doesn't exist anymore. One of the largest known structures in the entire universe is a void. It's nothing. And a figure we see as a symbol of life has a myth that is completely rooted in tragedy. It's just paradox after paradox. So, when you look at the stars, what are you really seeing? Are you seeing a story from our ancient past?
A scientific object that exists in our present? Or are you seeing a question about the future? Boötes really suggests that the answer is yes. It's all of those things at once. The night sky isn't just a bunch of pretty lights. It's a map of our history, a laboratory for our science, and a constant source of amazing questions that keep pushing us to explore. You just have to wonder, what will we find next?